All right, so moving on to the next thing that I want to do. Basically, with our Google Keep clone, what we are able to do now was we're able to add the actual note inside. So now we want to do this with our book collector. So now we want to be able to do that and then submit our book. Let me inspect, see what's going on. Submit our book, and instead of it just returning the array of the object, we want to show our books, and then we want to clear the field after we hit submit. So to do that, we are going to use some of the notes from our last app. So now, first thing we did in the other app, let's go see what we did. First things first. Let me hide this. Okay, first things first, in our Google Keep clone, what we added was code to our close form. So once we close the form, it'll restart both of these values. I don't know if it does it by default. So if we close and open it, no, it doesn't. So basically we can add this real quick to ours. So we can go to our close form function over here. In our close form function, we want to grab a few things. We want to grab our author, book title, and number of pages. So we want to say this dot author, and then equal that dot value, and equal that to an empty string. So now what we'll notice here is if we type in all of these, that's weird. Oh, that is a weird action there. So what if we put this here? Because our app is a little bit different than his app. Oh, that is weird. That is really weird. When we click off, it does that. All right. So we'll have to do it on something else. So when we say this and we click off, it's that. Okay, that's really weird. All right, well, we'll get to that. So we'll do that last, since that was the last thing we did. So what we did here is inside of the add note, we did a this dot display notes. So if we go here, we can take this out, and we can say this dot display books, and that is a method that we added. So the method was added down here, and then what we also wanted to do was this dot close form, or for me, what was it? It was close modal pop up. So close modal pop up. So now when we click submit, it's going to require all of these. But when we submit, it should, let's say, is undefined. Okay, so we can just go down here and create the function of display books. Make sure that it allows us to run this. So now when we type in random keys and we submit, it'll close the form for us. And one thing that's not happening here anymore is we're not getting our console.log. That's because I took it out. Okay, so when we do this, we submit and it closes that modal. When we open it, it still has it in, but we'll fix that towards the end. But as you can see, we still get our object or our array with our nested object of the random book color. So now with the display books, what we want to do is we want to basically display all of our books over here that we add. So this is going to require some CSS. And the CSS that I have, I do not think it's not going to work because I haven't built this container yet. So this is where we're going to use Scrimba kind of as a reference to kind of build out that responsive layout that we need. So we can say, go down here, and we have display books instead. So basically we're going to ask ourselves const has books. So basically has books is going to equal this dot what's our array type? Books. This dot books, and it's basically going to say dot length is greater than 0. So if the length of the books array is greater than 0, then we want to run a piece of code. And the piece of code is going to remove our books placeholder. So we can do this by saying this dot, and then now we need to grab our placeholder. So our code is a little bit different than the code that was provided. So with our ID here, we can say our ID of placeholder. They did this a little different. They did this with a div, but I'm gonna do it without the div. So grabbing our placeholder. So it's just gonna be a H3 for us instead of doing the placeholder the same way they did it with a div. So I'm gonna do it a little bit different. And then we wanna grab our placeholder. And basically now we wanna go down here and we wanna say this placeholder dot style dot display is equal to none. So now when we add a book, this should disappear, and that's exactly what we want happening. So another thing is we can equal it to has notes. So we can say basically if we have books, we're gonna run this if it's true. We're gonna run none. And then else, if we don't, we're gonna just say block. So if there is notes inside of the books array, we are going to basically run the ternary that says true, and then this placeholder display is going to be set to none. But if the books array length is, let's say, greater or is less than 0 or basically 0, it's going to stay up here. So the same thing's going to happen here. If we do that, it's going to delete. So that's exactly what we want happening. So it stays there, obviously, because we haven't added anything to it yet. So this was just a way that I did it. This is just a faster way to write the code. So it's just saying the style.display is going to equal to the has blocks, and then this will run if it's true, and then this will run if it's false. So now we can move on to lower down here, and this is the part where I'm going to have to add some HTML. So I'm going to have to say this dot book container. So we need to grab our books container by its ID, right? Books container by its ID. So grabbing our books container, and then we want to say this dot books container is going to equals to document dot query selector, and it's going to be the ID of books container. So now we can start adding our code for our actual containers. So this dot book container dot inner HTML is going to equal to, let's just say hello, just to make sure this is working. So it should be hello, right? So now instead of just saying hello, we can map over the array of books and we can insert that into our code. So the way we do this is by saying this dot books, and then we are gonna map over this dot books, and then map is a callback function. So we want to say book and then open our body, and then within the body we want to basically use our template literals. So this is where I'm probably going to need to add some code from Scrimba. I just closed that. I didn't mean to. This is where we're probably going to have to add some notes from Scrimba. And the reason why is that we are going to have to add our containers in here. So if we go to Scrimba here and we just go to the CSS file, we will be able to see what CSS we actually need. So we can close this because we're not going to need that. That's our modal close button. This is the modal content, modal. This is the colors, our toolbar, note text, note title, note hover, .note. Okay. So .note is the div that everything goes into for their thing. So instead of .note, we're going to say dot, and then this is going to be the books container, books container. So I don't think I've used book containers here. I already did do this. So we can just modify the one that we already have. So for our books container, we were just doing some placeholder. So this was temporary. We're just going to start over here. And we're basically going to say display flex. This is just going to be for all of our divs that are going to be added into our book container. So display flex is just going to make sure that it's flexbox. The flex direction of column is going to make sure that they're listed in columns. We're going to justify the content with space between. Okay, then we're going to say the margin is going to be 16 pixels, and then the width is going to be 250 pixels. The background color is going to be a default of white, and then our border color, we're just gonna, I had a sneezer. We're gonna, we'll just write it out for practice. So our border, 1 pixel solid, and then it's gonna be D3, 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 D3. And then our box sizing is going to be border box. And then our overflow is going to be hidden. Our position is going to be relative. And then our border radius is going to be 8 pixels. Transition duration is going to be, where is it? 0.218 seconds. This is a lot to write. So our transition properties are going to be right here. And then our transition timing function is going to be ease in. So that's just the animation that's going to run for, that's weird. That's just the animation that's going to run for all of our divs that are added in. So now what we can do, we're going to see what this is going to do. Oh, it's going to say hello. Books you add appear here. Okay, that's weird. So we're going to say add our book in here. And now if we submit, we get hello. So we don't want that happening. So we're going to do that. Okay, so we don't get anything. And the reason why we don't get anything is we haven't put in that inner HTML just yet. So now what we want to do is we want to take the first div. Well, we're going to copy this over. Or actually, we don't even have to copy it over. We're just going to use it as a reference. I don't like copy and pasting. Even if I am like just copying some code and modifying it, I like to kind of just, I like to use my own code. Or even if I am like taking code, I like to, what's the word for it? I like to rewrite it just for the learning experience. So basically, we're going to go here. And then we're going to close this. And we need to recreate, I don't even know which one is that. Displaying notes in the app, because it's at the end. So the books container, inner HTML, it's going to map over all of the array elements, which are books. And then we're going to say div. We're going to create a div with the style. And then the style is going to be a background of the book dot color. So if we go up here to our book color, it's going to be white. Or what does it correspond with on theirs? So the note, new note, it's going to be white. So yeah. Okay. So we can do that. The book color. Right. And then we are going to say, just add that. And then we're going to say our class is going to equal to book. And I got to sneeze again. So it's not going to equal book for us. It's going to equals to books container, because this is the book container that we're creating. So now if we div and we test this out, we're going to be able to see that it's not going to create anything just yet. Okay. So what we're going to do inside is we're going to create a new div, and inside of that div we're going to take the class and equal it to template literal, and it's going to be the book dot title and the class of book title. So we're going to have to add that class later on, and inside of it, inside of this div, we are going to take the book dot title. So let's see what happens now, because something different should happen now. So nothing different happens there. Okay. Test, test, test. Okay. So we get that. We submit, we get that again. So let's just keep building. So we get our note text next. So now we want to say, let's nest another div inside of that div. So we have our first div, and then we have our second div. So this is our book title, and then under it we have our book title and then our book text. So now this is our book title, and now we need our book. Oh, you know what I just realized? We don't even have a title, we have authors. So that's probably why it wasn't even working, because that doesn't even exist for us. So test, test, test. Okay, it still doesn't even work, but that's probably what was going on. So we have authors. So what if we say new book? And then save that. New book. Save that. Test, test, test. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep on just building. We'll fix that eventually. So now we have our book author, and now we want to create a new div. I don't even know where this came from. So now we want to create a new div, and this div is basically going to have since it's the note text for the Scrimba video, for us it's going to be obviously a class of book, or where is it, book title, and then inside of it it's going to have the book dot book title. So it's gonna have the book title, and then another thing we have that they don't have is we're gonna have the author. So book author is gonna be our class here.